Very recently, Most Haunted announced to the world, particularly through the red-top British newspapers and also across some internet sharing sites, that they had captured for the first time in 15 years a real apparition on an investigation. In this case, I believe it was the Wentworth stable block, where they picked up what appeared to be a ghost. Now, here is the actual clip. And if you watch very closely at the original clip, it starts off with Stuart announcing that he'd heard footsteps along a corridor.
Footstep. Hang on, let me rest it. Can you get that there, yeah? Make sure it doesn't fall. I heard footsteps, I'm sure I did. Come on, if you're here, walk up this corridor. Not the infrared there, but right. A noise is kind of, I don't know, it's like in the centre, here. Okay. Come on, if you're here. If you're here, what's that? What's that? There.
And this is crucial for what I'm about to share with you. The camcorder wasn't actually held logically pointing directly down the corridor to where the footsteps were going. Instead, the camera was left from a fixed position, which I thought was rather strange. But of course, within the remit of this story, the camera was left there, and in the far distance, ascending a staircase, was a ghostly apparition of what appears to be a fellow cast member, in fact Stuart himself.
Okay. Come on, if you're here. If you're here, what's that? What's that? There. Okay. Come on, if you're here. If you're here, what's that? What's that? There.
The outfall from that, of course, was, according to the newspapers, that they had captured something which had baffled experts. I'm not quite sure what they define by the word expert, because from what I can see, the video itself is a complete and utter sham, and it's easy to fabricate. But anyway, I digress. Looking at this clip, you'll see that the figure on a side-by-side comparison with Stuart are almost identical. Many people, and particularly those that actually investigate the paranormal and even produce their own work, were shocked by what they saw. Exactly how I felt. However, having known the history of Most Haunted over the years, it's a well-known fact that in 2005, the former skeptic on the show, Dr. Kieran O'Keefe, told the Daily Mirror newspaper that the show was a sham. He revealed that Derek Akora was fraudulently carrying out his alleged psychic revelations based upon notes that had already been shared with him, and of course the infamous story concerning Creed Kafer, which of course is Derek Faker, which Derek actually picked up upon and used in one of his appearances.
Is he telling you something, Derek? Is Sam giving you a name?
Creed! Creed!
Derek?
But the interesting point was that Kieran had announced was the fact that Carl Beattie had manipulated, or the team had manipulated, some of the footage to give a completely and utterly different picture.
Alright. Mm-hmm. Do you want to start? What's that noise?
What noise? Like a moan?
Breathing or something.
I heard like a...
That's what I heard.
But they managed to weather the storm, and the show continued. Eventually it was dropped by Living TV because, I suppose, to a degree of the controversy which was attached to the programme, and they eventually found a slot with Really TV. And of course, since then, their more low-budget productions have been shared on a regular basis through that channel. Now, one would speculate, why would they forge footage and how would they do it? Well, I said to you earlier about placing the camera from a fixed position on that particular shelf pointing down the corridor, and that is critical if you intend to fake footage. Now, what they didn't mention on the follow-up video with Glenn and with Yvette, Glenn goes into some detail to explain that the video that's captured is there on the card. When the memory card is full, it can't be tampered with. It's then placed directly into the PC, and he pressed the button and hey presto, there was the footage. So how can it be forged? Well, that is a complete and utter nonsense, because Glenn missed out one essential factor of the show, is the fact that it has to be edited by somebody. Somebody has to sit down with a video editor to produce this. It doesn't just magically appear in order and is shared directly to the public. It's not a live show per se. It's recorded, edited and then shared. And what they've actually done is a very simple technique which is known as Chroma Key. For example, you have a corridor, in this case, which was empty. You set the camcorder up and anyone can wander down that particular corridor and climb up the stairs in the far distance. So what you do, you separate the two, the figure of the person that's ascending the staircase and the shot of the empty corridor, and using Chroma Key on a video editor, you merge the two strands together. And the top layer, which will be the figure, is then scaled down to fade out slightly according to what your needs are, to a point where it actually appears to be a ghost, and it all looks quite fantastic and quite revealing. But of course it's a very simple trick to do, and if proof be necessary, I actually used some footage from a recent investigation where I merged two strands of footage. The first strand showed an empty aisle, the second strand showed myself, and all I had to do was place myself over the first strand of video and fade myself down on the video editor to create the illusion of a ghost, and hey presto, here it is. And as you can see quite clearly, it's a fake. I admit it's a fake. I did it for the purposes of showing you how it was done. Anyway, Most Haunted, of course, in their rebuttal video which came out with Yvette, went to great lengths to explain how the whole shoot had taken place, and that she actually and generally believed that yes, it did look like Stuart because it was a doppelganger ghost, or perhaps even stone tape theory. Of course she's not sure, and of course she is just making it up as she goes along. Now of course I know from experience that the likelihood of capturing a full-bodied apparition like that is virtually 1 in a billion. And the fact that this apparition has a striking resemblance to Stuart increases the odds even further, to the point where it's virtually and utterly impossible. So why have they done it, if we consider first of all that this is a fake piece of footage? Well, recently, and in recent months of course, it's been announced Zach Bagans from Ghost Adventures is coming over to the UK to run his own show called Haunted Houses, I believe. Now, quite how it's going to fan out, I honestly don't know. It may well be an exciting investigation into the paranormal made with honesty and transparency. But regardless, whatever the intentions are, I believe, and this is only my opinion, that the crew of Most Haunted are certainly worried about losing their tenure on the show. Because, of course, Zach is a big star stateside, and if he had his own show here, surely that too would be a big event. And it could also push Most Haunted out of the limelight, with the possibility that their contract may not be renewed. That's just idle speculation on my part. I can't say for sure that that is their intentions or thoughts. But with the fanfare of many announcements that have been made of late recently on the social media sharing sites and in the newspapers, it does kind of suggest that they are worried about their future. Now, how does this footage impact upon me personally? I've been investigating the paranormal for a number of years, and as best as I possibly can, everything that I show is genuine and truthful, and that is how I've built up a following. Now, of course, my following doesn't match anything near some of the others that are out there creating fake footage which they share, and particularly Chroma Key, which is so easy to actually perform. And I'm to a degree with one hand tied behind my back. And what doesn't help me is when I go to locations as a serious investigator and a historian, I'm actually insulted by some people by comparing me to some of the fake videos which have occurred on YouTube, and of course reference to, inevitably falls to Most Haunted. And if you follow the same line of thought through the newspapers, all that they tend to share happens to be openly fake or questionable footage or still photographs which have been sent into them. And all this does, it denigrates the whole image, the whole ethos of what paranormal investigation is all about. It reduces us to a group of Neanderthals which are scratching around out there in the mistaken belief that there is something that exists beyond this mortal coil. And that is the real problem, isn't it? How do you overcome the ignorance of people? And ignorance, I hasten to add, not in a desultory manner, but ignorance in the sense that all they've ever seen is fake and questionable material. Reality television format is something which can be stylized to fit any type of program material. You know, whether you're a train spotter or pilot or whatever, it always follows the same basic pattern. And it always leads to a high point just before the advertisement break, where you're sitting on tenterhooks through the ad break waiting to see this amazing revelation, which of course pans out to be nothing at all. But that is part and parcel of reality TV. The advertisers obviously want to get a good return for paying for their advertisements through really TV channel, and so they expect results from Most Haunted. So you can see that Most Haunted are really under a lot of pressure from many different directions. And if Zach pulls the rabbit out of the hat, then the advertisers are going to switch their advertising to that show and not to Most Haunted. I'm not affected by any of that to a degree with regard to production. I'm not placed under any pressure to produce videos in a certain way. I am encouraged by you, the viewer, to share what I find and add a mixture of magic and history to the whole proceedings. So, in a way, I pity Most Haunted and some of the other shows because of the pressures that they're placed under. But then on the other side of the coin, if you continue to share stuff which is questionable, which is rubbish, which is something that most people would reject, then all you're going to do is put a rope around your own neck and destroy your own show. But you're also destroying the reputation of a lot of decent people that are out there investigating, filming and sharing. And all you've done is reduce the whole notion of paranormal investigation and indeed the belief in the afterlife to be a complete and utter joke which could be ridiculed by sceptics and, of course, critics. And that's where we are at this present time. In the 70s, 80s and 90s, that was perhaps much more revolutionary than it is today, because there were programs that were going out there interviewing people and sharing video of occurrences which had taken place and using actors sometimes to recreate some scenes. It was compelling, interesting television, and that's what people want. They want TV to be compelling, interesting and educational. If only we could come back to what the paranormal truly represents and not something which is shared between advertisement breaks in a very busy schedule on a television channel.